The first 50 pages of this book are fantastic. The next 50 pages are pretty good, and the last 200 pages are the movie. If you've seen the movie, you're not missing anything.
Argo Font Book Review. Argo Font Book Review.
Every chapter in this book alternates between Princess Anna and Prince Hans, which is a neat idea. We don't see too much of Hans in the movie. Unlike Olaf, Hans is polite enough to not force himself into scenes where he doesn't belong. It was really nice to see teenager Hans growing up in the Southern Isles. That was the fantastic part of the book. It was interesting to see what Hans's life is like. I couldn't help but feel bad for Hans, because his family openly hates him. His father enjoys insulting him publicly. His 12 brothers hit him and throw heavy things at him for fun. Poor Hans can't wait to escape from his terrible life. I can think of many ways Hans might escape, but he believes marriage is the only option. When he learns that Princess Elsa will become queen in 3 years, he decides to go to Arendelle, meet Elsa, and get her to marry him. It's his only chance for happiness. First, he has to convince Dad to let him go. Hans becomes his father's virtual slave for 3 years. He's forced to do terrible things. We're not told what he does to punish citizens that don't pay taxes, but it's so bad it makes the bile rise in Hans's throat. Dad still hates Hans, but he agrees to let him go to Arendelle. The situation is complicated when it's revealed Arendelle will only be open for 1 day. Hans needs to make Elsa fall in love with him instantly. To make matters worse, Hans accidentally confuses Elsa with her younger sister Anna. So he has a grand romantic love at first sight moment with the wrong princess. It's like a romantic comedy or something. Luckily, Anna is a great person. She's cute, she's funny, and impulsive. Hans can't stop himself from falling in love with her. For the first time in forever, someone legitimately likes him. He's never been around someone who cares for him before. Hans and Anna sneak away from the coronation and have fun together. They bond over everything, especially how they feel isolated from their family members. Hans gets swept up in the emotion of the moment. He forgets his years of planning and scheming, and he asks Anna to marry him. This is not the time, the place, or even the princess he planned to marry, but he can't help himself. It is true love, a happily ever after for our fairy tale prince. That is page 99. Chapter 12 starts with this scene. Hans is unable to believe he just proposed. On the next page, the book catches up with the movie. Spoiler warning, Hans is the villain of the movie. At this point, he switches personalities. He stops being a sympathetic protagonist who loves Anna. He becomes a cruel, scheming mastermind who hates Anna. I did not like this. The romance between Hans and Anna was legitimately sweet, but the book flips a switch and he becomes evil. I found Hans's transformation to be jarring and disappointing. I liked him much better before he became evil. In the book's defense, there is plenty of foreshadowing for Hans's transformation. He did a lot of scheming and planning to get a princess to fall in love with him, but it's not a smooth transition, especially after Hans is so enamored by Anna, he proposes on the spur of the moment. I kept wanting him to go back to the old Hans, for him to act the way he did in the first part of the book, because that Hans would have been a great husband for Anna. They could have continued their fantastic romance. It would have been great, but the rest of the book follows the movie exactly, as in the characters quote the movie word for word. We get a few scenes that aren't in the movie, like Hans talks to Okid and Hans deals with the foreign dignitaries. I did not find them interesting. They had potential, but I didn't like them. I can see why they weren't in the movie. The book definitely favors Anna over Hans. Her chapters get longer and longer, while his get shorter and shorter. The last 50 pages feature his 3 shortest chapters, which is another disappointment. The big scene where Hans is revealed as a villain, that's told from Anna's point of view. The scene where Hans tries to kill Elsa, again, Anna's point of view. These are moments which would have been fascinating to see from the villain's point of view, but we don't get that. The book is a pretty quick read since the last two-thirds are the same as the movie, and if I'm being honest, the Anna chapters in the first third are the same as the movie, too. Overall, it is a fascinating character study of Hans, revealing all sorts of new backstory and motivations, culminating in a sweet love story that goes nowhere when the book turns into a strict novelization of the movie. I wish the book had continued on the trajectory it set out for Hans. That could have been great. A 100-page book which focuses exclusively on Hans and his transformation into an anti hero. Instead, it's mostly a long novelization of the movie with some interesting new Hans stuff. I give A Frozen Heart a 4.8 out of 10. Let me explain the math behind it. We have 25 pages of Hans being fantastic, 10 out of 10. 25 pages of him being about an 8 out of 10, and then the rest of the book is a 4 out of 10 because it's just a strict novelization. I did the math, that's about a 4.8 out of 10.